Hello writers. So today I started writing at around 20 past 4 and I've written about, I think it's 1246 words. I'm just having a bit of a break. I haven't been writing the entire time. I've stopped between scenes and had like tea breaks and walked around for a bit just so I'm not sort of sitting in the same place the entire time, because it's actually quite bad just to be constantly sitting down. It's almost 7 o'clock, so I've had quite a long break. I had like a quick snack break, and I'm actually considering going back and pushing myself to write a little bit more, because I've got a couple of scenes that I've already written scene outline notes in Scrivener, and I've been pretty lazy with my writing this week. I haven't been writing every day, so I want to push myself a little bit more to try and make up for those moments this week that I haven't been writing. So I've finished. Sorry, I'm just going to double check where I'm at with the word count of the novella. So I've passed the 22,000 word mark for my novella Missing, and I finished the rest of a scene. What I usually do is, before I write the scenes, I'll write scene notes, and it'll be a general gist of how I want the scene to play out. So it'll just be, this happens, this happens, this happens, this happens, and any ideas I get for dialogue I sort of write them then. So I do like a complete outline of the novel or novella, and then I will outline the individual scenes, and then I'll just write. And this particular scene had an outline of, I think it was like 250 words, so I wrote an extra maybe 400 words, and I sort of fleshed it out. And now that I've passed the 22,000 word mark, I only have, I think it's 10,000 words left of the story to write, which is the final few scenes of Act 2 and then Act 3. So my Act 3 it's a little less than 25% of my novel. I think it is okay to have a shorter Act 3 and have Act 1 and Act 2. Obviously Act 2 is quite long because it's 50% of the novel, but my Act 1 is a little bit longer, and so is my Act 2, and my Act 3 is shorter. The reason why I can get away with a shorter Act 3 is because this is technically the first book in a series, but it's the third one I've written. I know, complicated. I need to leave things. I don't have to wrap everything up neatly like you would in a standalone. I leave plot lines open for the next book because these other things will be explored in the next book. So I like to tie the books together. You don't have to read them in order. If you can start anywhere, and if you're curious enough, you can go and read the backlist, but you don't necessarily have to. But I've written the books out of order, so I have to sort of keep track of what's to come. So I'm sort of laying the foundation for that. So it's a bit complicated. I don't actually recommend writing out of order. It's complicated, but yeah. So I'm quite happy with what I did today. As always, I was over ambitious with the amount of scenes that I wanted to do today. I only got to do 3 out of those 5, but actually one of the scenes I wrote more words than what I needed to. Maybe not needed to is the wrong word, than what I expected to. So that's it. So I'm gonna wrap up things here, clean up my office, and then get ready for tomorrow and do it all again. Hello everybody. So today it's the 7th of September and it's Friday afternoon, around 25 past 5, and I've just started working. Well, I've been working on Missing today for quite a while, and I moved to the living room / dining area just for a sort of change of location, because I kind of felt that sitting in my office, even though I've got my own office and a beautiful view, I sort of felt like I was avoiding writing, and I'm sort of wondering if getting back into doing a writing style vlog will actually help me finish this thing. So fingers crossed. So at the moment, I'm just looking at the computer, just so you know what I'm looking at off screen, my little MacBook. I have under 6,000 words to write. There is a one scene that will consist of 2,000 words. It's actually, at the time I thought it was going to be, no, I didn't actually. I put one line on my outline for a group of scenes that would sort of make up 2,000 words. And the reason why it's a group of scenes, it's a few different locations, and it's towards the end, building up to the climax of the story. So it's one of those scenes. Quite often I'll do this. There'll be this sort of treasure hunt style group of scenes that I write, and I usually write them twice. It'll be the last thing that I write. So realistically, I've got about 3,700 words to write. Probably not going to get that all done today, just for the sake of being realistic and not over ambitious. So as I said, I've got 3,000 words to write, and I've sort of noticed the way I've written this particular book is slightly different to all the others. I'm starting to make editing notes, and this is probably the wrong, not wrong. I don't think it's not a right and wrong way to do a book. There's just like a quick way and a slow way, and I sort of felt like this time I sort of feel like I've taken the slow route. I'm sort of writing a first draft, and I'm also making editing notes and other things as I sort of realize, oh, I actually need to change this, and I'll go through, and I'm just using the comments in Scrivener to do that. I'll just highlight text and I'll add a comment, and I will make the note and come back and change it in the revision. I'm hoping that'll actually make the revision much easier this time round. So this is my computer, and this is Scrivener, and what you're seeing is a scene in chapter 2. That's just how many words I have left, and I've highlighted, see if I can find the highlight for you. Yeah, here it is. So I've highlighted this, and I've clicked this little button here to create this, to get a new comment. And so when I first wrote this particular scene, I thought that she would be living in a house, and I've sort of changed my mind a little bit, and I've gone and I have found a property that looks like somewhere she would live, and the layout's slightly different. Because with a thriller, I do want to add a sense of realism. Maybe you don't have to go this far, but I do go this far. Yeah, down the bottom I just have notes about, this is actually a different location for a different scene that I'm going to write, but I have notes about what the location looks like based on an earlier scene that I've written, so that when I go and I write another scene in that location at a later time, there'll be no continuity issues in the book, because I sort of feel like the less mistakes I make now, the easier it's going to be when I revise. And I think for all future books, I will go and take the time to, after I outline, then sort of think about how I imagine the location to appear, and to do a little bit more location research before I start writing, because then it'll be easier for the next book. Just for the added benefit of keeping it real, today I was going to write 2 scenes, but in order to write those scenes, I realised that the locations in those scenes had been used before, and what had happened in previous scenes in these particular locations is there was a crime, then the police came in and they went through looking for a whole heap of forensic things, so it was officially a crime, like an official crime scene, all taped off. So now that these particular 2 characters have returned, I need to really consider what a crime scene looks like after the police have done and have walked away, before like an official crime scene cleanup crew has actually gone in and cleaned up. I sort of spent a good portion of an hour going through Google trying to figure out what various types of dust prints would look like and what type of products I use on different types of surfaces, because I want to mention this one thing in there, but I need to make sure that I'm using that the way I describe the after, what it looks like now post crime scene, I sort of feel like I need to get that right in order to add a level of, like, a new level of authenticity to the story. So yeah, so even though I didn't get any physical words on the page, I worked on the book, and I do consider this research that I need to do in order to write a scene actual writing. But in terms of word count, I didn't actually contribute. And sometimes this is what writing does look like for me. Sometimes it is because I write in a genre that's set in the real world. Like if I was writing fantasy, I would have a whole set of different problems. But I'm not writing fantasy. I'm writing a crime thriller, so I need to be super familiar with certain things, and sometimes it means researching as I write. So today I kind of spent time researching. It's now almost 6:45. I did spend a bit of my writing time today writing down a few notes. So when I went through and did why can't I talk today? So this is going to be a big problem. So I wrote down a few more notes, just like I showed you earlier, in a few other scenes for revision, because I went back and referenced these scenes just to double check I was getting the locations right, because I do use locations again in this particular book because it's a novella and it's smaller. Characters do come back to certain locations. So yes, that's why I went back and I realized a few things about how I wrote the scene first. I thought I probably should make a note of that now while I remember, so when I go back and do revisions I don't miss things like that. So I'm gonna feel tempted to leave things here today because my hair's a mess. My mirrorless DSLR camera that I usually use for stuff like this is completely flat, and I need to get ready because I'm going out on a date with Roland tonight. Yay! For the sake of keeping things a little different and not having the same sort of clips over and over again, like me talking about how much I've written, the issues I'm having, and showing you clips of fast forward clips of me writing at my desk or at the dining table, I thought I would show you something a little different. Last weekend I went onto Amazon and I purchased some writing related books. There was one book I particularly wanted for as I revised Missing, and it was a book on setting. It was a setting thesaurus, and because I was on Amazon and there were other writing related books in my sort of wish list, and I thought maybe I should get them, and surprise, I have. Just so that you're aware, if you can hear some creepy background noise, it's actually the dishwasher. For some reason right now it's decided it wants to be noisy. So yeah, and I've got it on chef mode, so it's going to take like 3 hours. Sorry. But hopefully I'll be able to edit out the background noise in post, so you're thinking, what background noise? Fingers crossed. So the first book I've got is The Urban Setting Thesaurus by two people that I can't pronounce their names. I have a whole collection of these books. I've got a couple on characters. Yeah, I have a couple on characters. Actually, I'm going to go and show you them right now. So here are the books I already have in my collection already. I've got the Emotion Thesaurus, Positive Trait Thesaurus, Negative Trait Thesaurus, and The Emotional Wound Thesaurus. I know that's a lot. I think I've got the entire collection. But back to my Amazon writing related book haul. So I've got this book, and the reason why I wanted this book, if I haven't sort of shared it with you already, I've got like a goldfish memory at the moment, which is super interesting. The reason why I wanted to get this book is during the edits, during the revision phase, I already know that this is a bit of a weakness of mine. I think it comes from the fact that when I started learning to write, I started learning how to write screenplays. I guess there's a tiny bit of scene description, but there isn't a lot of it. It's sort of very minimal. So a screenplay is almost like a bare bones of a story, and for this reason, I do struggle with knowing how to describe setting, the five senses, and just how the point of view character views the world around them. So to help with that, I have purchased the Urban Setting Thesaurus, and what this does is it goes through various different settings and describes the sights, sounds, smells, tastes, and textures. For instance, they've got like a whole description on a morgue. You know, I conveniently opened it up to that because I'm a thriller/crime writer. So yeah, this is like heaven for me. So hopefully this will help me be able to tell a better story and give me ideas to describe the scene around me without going overboard, because the scene setting, like the setting description, is really there just to help the reader paint a picture in their mind. If you do it well, each reader will sort of see something slightly different, and they'll almost have their personalized read of the story, which is what you really want. You don't want to kind of do too much description of setting, but you want it to be just enough. The second book I picked up is How to Write a Thriller by Scott Mariani. Scott Mariani is actually conveniently a thriller writer. He writes the, I've called it the Ben Hope series. I think he just calls it on Amazon, or his publisher Avon calls it on Amazon, Ben Hope, number 16 or whatever. And I sort of have a love-hate relationship with those books, but he is good at what he does. Like, he does write a really good page turner. I did read the reviews on this book, and there was a few people going, oh, nothing new, and it's like, well, I sort of find that funny when people read, non-fiction books, personal development, self-help type books, and they write, oh, nothing new, and they give it a 1 star, and it's like, well, obviously you haven't put these things into action because you're still searching for that silver bullet instead of doing what these people tell you to do. Yeah, so I'm reading this hoping to sort of get something that'll help me improve how I write my thrillers. Wow, I sounded really Australian then. This book surprised me the most because it is so big. Like, this jumper, I've got it from a review, and it's called Fifi Insta Jumper or something like that. And this is how big it is, like, compared to this giant. It's quite a big dog that's on the front of this, and it's so big. Like, you can see the size of my head. Yeah, it's such a big book. I had no idea this book was going to be this huge, and it's so thick, because I do have the ebook version of this, and I saw Joanna Penn's podcast, her interview with her mum on their co-writing journey together. They write the books written by the sweet romance books written by Penny Appleton, and she had this book and she pulled it up, but on the video it didn't look this big, and I thought, you know what, I should get that book. And so I did. The story grid, I wouldn't actually recommend this for beginner writers because there's so much in this book and it's confusing. So if you do buy this book, Sean Coyne knows what he's talking about. He's a really great editor, and I love the podcast, but sometimes I sort of dip in and out of the podcast because I find it overwhelming and it's just too much information. So this book, I would treat it as a reference guide, and you sort of skip to the sections that you need as you're revising and editing your work. I wouldn't read this from cover to cover because it's so much information and it's highly complicated, because it's kind of everything about writing a story. It's not just how sometimes when writers will write a book on writing, they'll focus on one tiny element, whereas this is sort of, this appears to be everything. So those are the books I purchased. These two were really I just pushed them in my cart because I thought, yay, and they were on I got free shipping, free next day shipping. So I went onto Amazon on Friday and it ended up in my house on Saturday. I was like, oh, yay. I guess that's the thing with shopping online, is you don't actually know, especially when it's not like size related things. I guess this is a side effect of that, where you don't know how big book that you're getting. Although it probably has in the description, I just didn't scroll down and sort of pay attention to the millimeter measurements, because I was a bit of an idiot. But yeah, this just surprises me. I'm clearly not over it. So I guess my question for you is, have you purchased a writing related book recently? If you have, let me know by commenting down the bottom. And if you are interested in these books, I'll leave links to the books in the description underneath the video as well.